for Planet Green.
We have launched.
We've completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Cheese. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan, and nationally, and internationally, and even in Spaceland. There's an argument that we evolved from the cannabis plant. Let's just be honest, okay?
Ow, what's going on, everybody? How y'all doing?
420th episode. I've got an agenda here. I usually resist agendas, and I will tell you that I'm not really going to follow this.
If you're a connoisseur, you're going to want the good stuff. And if you want the good stuff, you're going to go for the mom and pop stuff because that's the good stuff.
It's just a real pleasure to come here and congratulate you on your 420th show, and thank you for having me on a few times over the 420.
Alrighty.
We have launched.
Welcome, everybody. Woo! Planet Green Cheese officially starting. Episode number
445.
445. Jim, of course, named it again using
I didn't.
profanity and attacks on people and industries, but it's called, what's it called, Jim?
It's called Fuck Comcast.
Okay, we'll come back to you about when we talk about Bill Shooty, too.
Yeah.
But,
everybody understands fuck Comcast.
okay.
Yeah.
And, well, anyways, I'm Michael Komorn. We're about to start the show. I thought I'd do this. We would go through the, instead of introducing everyone, because we could get off track, we could introduce the topics and then discuss who is going to be addressing them or whatnot, right? Does that sound good? I don't have my main lead sheet, but tonight we're going to be talking about lots of medical cannabis, and bad prosecutors, and Neil Young and his problems with the immigration authorities right now. We'll be talking about some legal issues of collateral consequences of criminal convictions, and the ever so popular and controversial plans of Michigan in the wake of the CDC findings on marijuana-linked vaping deaths and how they still remain unclear. Is that all the topics, I think?
Well, Danny Trevino will likely be calling in, who's awaiting sentencing federally for doing the same stuff that myself and Amanda and others have done over the years in Michigan, and just trying to help people get to cannabis.
We can talk about that, and that's always a topic that needs to be discussed in greater emphasis, which is the victims and social justice issues that still remain and are just being ignored as we plow on through in this commercial market. But with that being said, and those being the topic teasers, as I've been instructed by Tommy, let's start with the introductions for the what I like to call the community entertainment. Start with the in the green corner wearing black trunks, Tommy Two-Tone.
Hey, guys. Happy holidays. Great to be here. And looking forward to the show.
And Tommy, of course, is reminding me with his code words that we want to greet and say hello to all our Facebook Live fans and or people that are watching, listening.
They're the only fans.
Or
tonight.
torturing, or subjecting themselves to the torture of the show. And please feel free to comment, ask questions. Jim is monitoring that. We all will, and try to
if you say so,
discern whether or not we'll be able to answer those or not. But moving along in our community entertainment introductions, please welcome the founder of Michigan Parents for Compassion, the one and only Jim Powers.
good evening, everybody. It's good to be here. We're having a bit of an internet outage.
What?
But we've got a little solution hooked up, but that is what drove the name. Okay. So just FYI. But good to be here. Looking forward to the show.
Alrighty, moving along here, we've got the one and only Debra Young, who of course appears on 5 or 6 radio other podcasts, and we're lucky to have her here with us tonight because she wasn't booked to be some other place. So please welcome Debra Young.
So Merry impeachment, everybody. They just voted yes on the first article. The voting's done on Article 1.
In favor or against?
Well, in favor.
Yay.
Article 1 has passed.
Has passed.
Okay.
So Merry impeachment and happy holidays. And
Okay, outstanding. That means what?
do you mean?
We go to trial next. That's the one and only Jim Powers.
Good evening.
Yes, there'll be immediately next Article 2. Will be up
Old
for a
Article
vote,
2.
Okay, ready to vote.
which is obstruction of Congress because of all the
So, Merry
withholding of
impeachment and
testimony
happy
from
holidays and-
witnesses and documents and
Why
things
am I
like
hearing
that.
stuff?
I
What is Michael doing?
Sorry.
Nice.
Michael's destroying the audio, Tommy.
No, I was not.
Michael.
I was trying to. Okay, go ahead. All right. Did we figure that out?
Yes, we figured it out.
Okay. You'll let us know when the full vote on.
Well, again, when it's over, I think it takes like a half hour.
Do we want to have a discussion about that at any point
Yeah,
today?
why not?
Maybe we'll see
Okay.
if we get to it.
We can lead on that. That'll be all right. All right. We are lucky and fortunate to have with us Amanda Jocelyn returning. And
See, here Jeff's all smiley about it too.
and returning from the South America, and hasn't been a long time, and did not bring a explanation or a permission slip, but we'll be reviewing that on appeal later on. Please welcome back my dear friend Jeff Frazier.
Great to be back. Trump just got impeached on Article 1.
Yeah.
We're going to have a discussion about that.
Maybe.
We'll go off a little bit. And as many of you know, he's already contributed to the calling in of the Danny Trevino, and is really good at getting guests booked for the show when he tries, but he really does. He is of Jamie Lowell. He's responsible for everything, as he will tell you.
Producer Lowell.
Please welcome Jamie Lowell.
Hello, and as many people know, and unfortunately last week I talked about Rick's father. This week, our guest that was on last week, and friend of many of us in the community, has undergone a tragedy, and his family also. And I want to send out our positive vibes and prayers and whatever people do to help people who are grieving. And for Ray Reyes, Ray's going through some really tough times. This was just a tragic loss in his life, so I just want to acknowledge that for tonight's show too, please.
Yes, we got to say it's, yes. Well said, Jamie. And it's unfortunate we've had to do that the last couple of weeks. And of course, our special guest here, my good friend. He's very festive tonight, as you can tell. He's returned to Planet Green Trees, and we're excited to have him back. The one and only Tony Portelli of Grow Green.
Woo! Ho, 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 everybody out there, and thanks for having me on the show. This is Tony.
Jim was kind of offended by that.
What do you mean?
Oh, on the hoe?
On the hoe.
Yeah, the hoe.
The hoe.
Ho. Very
All right,
Christmas.
so can we learn from prosecutors' misconduct? Is that what we're starting with? I guess.
I mean, we could.
All right, you got something else?
Well, Neil Young is having some
Alright.
problems.
Let's
That's
talk about Neil Young. Let's talk about that, because this has been a common theme, and of course, immigration issues are in the
Graham
forefront
Nash
of this.
wrote a song about it.
That's right. So, as teased, Neil Young is facing delay in his application for U.S. citizenship after honestly answering a question about his marijuana use.
Yeah.
In a letter to fans posted on his website, the Canadian songwriter said that he passed the test for citizenship, but that he had been called to take another test due to my use of marijuana and how some people who smoke it have a problem.
Oh.
U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services added a policy in April of 2019 proposed by Jeff Sessions during his period as Attorney General, which states an applicant who is involved in certain marijuana-related activities may lack the GMC, good
Moral.
moral character. And more? That's the story, I guess. Is there more? That's it.
No,
So
I mean, it's pretty
that's enough. But so
open and shut. Yeah.
the commentary
Jeff
here first is
Sessions
why,
is an
why would
asshole.
anything that Jeff Sessions ever did still be policy when our leader doesn't even like him?
Our leader.
Whatever. Our current
He must.
president.
He must have liked this
Temporary.
piece.
What?
Maybe he liked this piece.
What is the state of the federal law right now with the repeal of Sessions, Jeff Frazier? You know, the Sessions repealed the Cole Amendment, right? We're going back to the way it was in 1938, I think is what the... And now we're seeing that his influence in that is now effectuating the immigration.
Man, I don't even know where to start with that.
Yeah.
There's still no funding right now, right? So even though there's no Cole memo type thing.
Right, I think that was undone with Sessions.
Well, there's no funding to the DEA for prosecutions of theoretically compliant, state law compliant marijuana actors.
Right.
But it has to be emphasis
Strictly compliant.
on, right. Section 8 meaning that one.
Unambiguous compliance.
Right. But so this is tragic, of course. There's a lot of other immigrations that are in the news these days, but do you think there's an ulterior motive here, Jeff Frazier?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that the aggressors in the drug war have a built-in malice. I mean, I think that it, as you say, quite often is all based on a lie. Now, as we found in the crime lab scandal, 40% of law enforcement, 40% of the criminal justice system, 40% of the fees, fines, and forfeitures that the district court receives, 40% of the prisoners, 40% of the criminal justice system is billions and billions of dollars. And you add on top of that, a massively corrupt organization like what was Border Control and is now ICE or, God knows who. And, the very idea that somebody admitted to smoking marijuana 20 years ago and it was illegal, thereby disqualifies you 20 years down the road from applying for a visa or ever coming to the country or certainly not becoming a citizen. It's absurd. It's absurd.
It's almost akin to to use the marijuana as a vehicle for the moral character is absurd today, right? I mean, in today's world, in light of just the influx of knowledge and information, of course, Jeff Sessions, who made this policy, is still of the mindset, devil's lettuce, and Satan's surge or whatnot. But it sounds a lot like the 60s and 70s and the CIA running around trying to get rid of musicians and protesters, and they're
right.
They're Martin Luther King, and they're taping and bugging of him, and all of the. I mean, Neil Young is relevant today, but he's certainly not bringing rioters. I mean, I guess at any moment he kicks in to Ohio, and people may want to knock some walls down.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think that he's relevant, but he's not a threat to the United States government.
Well, certainly not because he smoked marijuana 20 years ago or yesterday, for that matter. But that's not what they say. That's not what Sessions believes. They refer you to the Bible, where authority you obey. That this is about authoritarianism. This is about he wasn't of poor moral character because he smoked marijuana. He had poor moral character because he broke the law, and so that authoritarianism is what's given us current politics, and it's what gives us a bunch of the serious challenges that we're facing now. But the idea that Border Patrol, I'll refer everyone to Rant, U.S. versus John Lennon, because the parallels are very extraordinary. U.S. versus John Lennon, yeah, outrageous.
I mean, we know from in immigration law, there's lists of crimes that have committed are automatic preclusion from citizenship, right? I can tell you, in fact, it's become a matter of law that when somebody pleads guilty, that part of the plea requires the judge to inquire if they are a citizen, because with that goes, you may lose, if you're not a citizen, you may be deported, right? If you are a citizen, get a felony or whatever. So it's become part, and it is always grounds to deport when there's a conviction, and then even some other misdemeanors. There's this catch-all of crimes against moral turpitude. However, I've never seen the use, or the inquiry of the use as being, it's not a crime. It's not, it doesn't mean that he was, he answered a question apparently of, you have used marijuana, but it was not addressing an arrest for marijuana. in the United States. I mean, I'm saying there's a distinction here. You know, asking,
Right. The way I recall seeing the distinction that they make is if it was illegal at the time and the place where you smoked marijuana, well then that's moral turpitude. Not because it's marijuana, but because you broke the law.
No, I understand, but I'm saying, I understand it's a breaking the law, but there's not a conviction for it. They're
No,
asking
he doesn't
you
have to be. He admitted.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They, you know, there's no record of it. They required him to, you know, to how you say, confess against himself, provide evidence that provides the crime of what it may be.
You know, do you think he has any rights at the border?
Less than in a schoolhouse.
A Canadian, a foreigner, comes to the border. What rights do they have?
Well, he's inside the country at this point. He's not at the border. He's like
Okay, and I think that there's a good argument that he has been vested with some rights,
Yeah,
right? Some
right.
privileges, and therefore they can't be taken away from
Well, I
him
think
without
it's
due process. Patriot Act says otherwise.
That's true.
Well, then for the purposes of policy, I think that's bad policy that we're going to be.
No
Bad
shit.
policy that we don't have a Fourth Amendment.
Or providing the same rights. You know, we're going to fucking, you know, make decisions based upon, you know, third world country antics, totalitarian and authoritarian.
Authoritarian, and that's what propelled, you know, the current president into the White House is this authoritarianism. You know, tough on crime, tough on borders, tough on immigrants, tough on, you know. It's authoritarianism that really explains the common threat.
Do you think
It's
so?
like-
I think it's more nationalism.
Well, right, with a powerful leader. You know. So
With a threatening leader.
With a seriously strong state. I mean, people welcome fascism. It's not unusual.
Well, it's
not
interesting because authoritarian, you know, is that associated with fascism and I mean, as much as nationalism? You know what I mean? Nationalism is part of you know, the.
Yeah, I think anytime the government gets to a particular size and is given a particular power, and the checks and the balances are out of whack, and the military and affiliated corporations are with serious power and budget, you know, it would be unsurprising were this country to slip into
There's a good argument that
a
there's
serious authoritarian state. It already is.
Well-
I mean, what do we do for a living? You know.
Well, one could say, how many times has certain policies currently been rejected by the courts? Right? You know, shut down many of the immigration
the courts
policies.
that are in the process of getting stacked, as in 13 new Trump judges approved today on the day he was impeached. Sorry, man.
That's a lot.
Well, at least they're not appointments for life. Oh, they are.
Oh,
that's right.
oops.
Yeah, right.
Whoops. Ain't that a bee?
Can't believe they got away with that with the, you know, the Obama appointee being shelved.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird time there in that government. What are you betting on the? As we're talking about the outcome of the impeachment trial.
You know, the latest kind of least original thinking is for the Democrats to vote on the articles of impeachment, but to not appoint the managers. In other words, think about it as an indictment or an information. Have it, but don't serve it. In other words, vote the articles of impeachment and hold on to the indictment.
And continue the investigation.
Right.
Probably add to it.
Well, they're almost through the second
Because the Senate has declared, you know, we can do this in a day.
Right.
We're not going to listen to any new witnesses. We're not even going to look at the old witnesses. It's all bullshit. It's all partisan. It's all blah. And let's get over it. That's what they're going to do if the House sends those articles of impeachment.
And it'll be hanging over their head, and if he does happen to win again, they can pull the trigger after the election, potentially.
Point being is if you send it to the Senate, first couple of weeks of January, it's going to be done. And, you know, shot and missed. So, you know, I mean, if the rule is if you're going to take a shot at the king, don't miss, well, then somebody needs to be thinking about doing something like voting on the articles of impeachment and stick them in your pocket.
You know, it's funny, that play that of getting an indictment and holding on to it and continuing to investigate and being the king in the courtroom or the bully that's, getting charges and, drawing leverage. I could see, as he's done a lot of times, like, talking about the over-aggressive, government coming after him. You know what I mean? We talk about that, right? I mean, it's kind of interesting, but that bulliness that they're doing, his disdain for the government in its investigations and the search warrants and, the deep state and stuff like that, and is, it's interesting the way those sides got divided, I would say, and in the news and the media, and oddly, to me, what was described here is what they're going to do in a way seems just procedurally, it's just bullying, saying it's Trump and you want to get him and
He
whatever.
just went down on the second article. They just
down?
finished
Okay.
voting.
All right.
So they
So
vote
the
both of them.
Fine. So they're going to hold on to it and continue to investigate and get some other stuff, or we'll hold it over his head, which is kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's tactics in the, it's not the criminal justice system, but I'm saying I could see him, making it, like either bullying or, holding over his head and blah, 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 trying to affect, it just gives him some fodder and rally to a certain degree. It's got to be done, but if they're not going to get it done, then why? It's like
it's a stain on his presidency.
Is it?
It'll always
Is
be
it?
Yeah, is it?
I mean, I could name 50 things that we could say
he's
worse
a
stains on his
stain.
presidency.
Yeah, but treason and lying to
Congress say it's
Congress
okay
and-
just to
Yeah, just
to
go
ignore
ahead
the balance
and
of power and
right, and give
they
him
have, they
free
have to do something, even if the other set of circumstances in the process
or give him
are
free
stacked
reign
against
to
them. I
repeat
think that's the
stuff
logic.
over and over. No.
Because they would then be saying we're not going to stand up and do anything for some other political
I think
reason.
she holds under a crowd. Just says nothing. Sometimes the right thing to do is nothing. Get the fucker impeached and then just go back to
No,
work.
but you have to impeach him though. Yeah, I mean,
No, impeachment
Right.
is like indicting. Get the indictment, stick it in your pocket, go back to work.
Because the question is, what's the penalty? Like the conviction of the impeachment. That's really the issue. What the penalties
The penalty at trial is removal from office. That's the only question. Should he be removed from office?
are. Right. So when they say that Clinton was impeached,
He was indicted.
He was impeached but not
And he was
convicted.
tried and acquitted.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so he wasn't removed from office, and he exactly what Jeff said, and
Yeah,
everybody
I
moved
guess
on
they did
and
that, so it's-
continued on. But it's a big stain on his presidency also.
Big stain.
It's a stain.
I think that it would be. I mean,
It's a stink bomb
look,
on the presidency.
you know what would be equally as important in the history of all this as we go right now? Finding a candidate that can compete with him. Let's go
I
around
don't
the-
like anybody.
let's go
I
around
don't
the
like
room. Let's
any
go
of the
around
damn
room.
candidates.
If and no one has to disclose their particular political affiliations. This may be a room of libertarians. Who knows?
Burning.
Or Buddhists. But listen, the question that I posed to who is going to challenge the indicted president next year or whatever 2020 what is it 20
I have no idea.
I don't like any of the candidates. I don't.
I hope that it's Bernie. I'm a Bernie fan.
I don't
but,
think he's going to beat him.
There's only a couple people who I'm not voting for, and that is Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
Creepy Joe Biden.
Okay, so Deb, Democratic strategist.
No, but I'm not
You do
impressed
vote
with any of the candidates. I'm hoping somebody is going to come out of left field and save the day because I don't think anybody's
Okay.
going to beat this
So we're
idiot.
counting up. We got Jim, not
Oprah.
sure. Deb,
Not sure.
Deb's
Oprah
looking
or
at the left
Michelle
field.
Obama, I don't know.
Deb's looking at left field.
I'm
maybe.
looking for. I'm looking for.
Left field.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll
Because
be a
there is
pig
not a
that-
single candidate currently that could beat Trump.
I don't. Think
I
so.
totally disagree with that completely.
Amanda, you got
I think Bernie can too.
I don't think there's anybody that can
Biden probably.
Yeah, I don't think. I think none
I-
of the candidates are strong
I don't think
enough.
I don't think there's anybody
No.
that Trump will beat in 2020. I think he's. I cannot see him winning again. in
His
2020,
people have
but I-
dug their heels in. They're even more fanatical about him.
It's down to the women.
Tony, do you care to offer an opinion? You know,
Somebody's
No,
just gotta
no
be able to
opinion on
swing
this one.
mud
I'm gonna
the way
pass.
she does.
So Somebody needs to
response.
convince the white
No
Christian
response.
women that it's not good
It's
to
just
vote
not
for
cool.
Trump.
Well, here's the
But
thing.
go with Bloomberg joined, right?
Because that's
Okay,
demographic.
yes.
Because
There you go.
Can I
Put some
suggest
on the
something? You know, we
business
were
person.
talking about this conceptually. You know, there's only so many people that don't know who to vote for as of right now as we speak, and those are the only people that matter right now, right? Like if you split up everyone who
I
knows
know-
who they're going to vote for, even if it's not them and it's somebody else, there still remains enough people that have not decided yet who to vote for.
Well, we don't even know who's making it on the primary. You
There
don't
go.
know.
Okay,
We don't know.
100%, 100%. But the point is, as we sit here right now, and the more that this becomes clear to us, and we're talking about it a long time in advance of it, there's still a number of people that will define and decide the election who aren't even thinking about this. And their decision will be made by, and during the last week of the election, and the TV commercials that they see on NBC, ABC, and CBS, not on
Who's watching
cable
ABC,
stations.
NBC,
They are.
CBS?
They are. They are.
Who are
The
they?
people that will decide the election. Because, you know why? Jamie Lowell, who thinks that he's got no chance of winning. Who are the people that you think are going to change? What votes are going to be different that are going to change things?
Well, we saw first of all what
Suburban
happened.
women.
One of the best things about the only really good thing about the Trump presidency is how it created a response from many citizens who hadn't been normally engaged in the processes. And there's going to be more numbers coming out. In Michigan, you know, that happened in Michigan. It was a 10,000 vote difference, and there was 50, 60,000 people who voted but just did not vote for a president at all. Left that completely blank.
Okay.
well, and we're going to run into that if it's Biden versus Trump.
It's going to be the same thing.
Right.
Listen, I'm going to tell you that.
It's
wrong?
not going to be Biden because of all this bullshit with the sun. It's not going to be
Can't
Biden
be.
now. It can't be. But yeah, no, I don't think it's going to be Biden. I think it was going to be, but now it's not. I think that tide has changed.
No, but
Yeah.
whoever it is, I would bring
Even in the back rooms, that ought to change. I mean, why square that up? Give him perfect battleground.
Well, I can ask, right?
I'm saying so the California, New York, they're not going to make a difference in the election. We know who they're going for, right? Ohio, Michigan, nobody knows, right? Those are-
Texas could make a difference.
Are they going to vote Democrat?
It depends.
It depends. You think so?
Florida?
I think all this Florida's up in the air. Isn't Florida always the one that's?
I think Texas is too, depending on the candidate. I mean, they're going to have a hard time going.
Well,
for
this is why it's so
Kamala or
important.
Pete Buttigieg.
If you're going to get any of these states, you have got to appeal to the center. If there's a thing,
Suburban women.
And I think that even though the most appealing candidates to some, Bernie, I don't know, Elizabeth Warren seems to be, going to the front. She has got not a chance. Bloomberg, like an East Coast, liberal center Democrat, is Jewish is not going. Whatever, he's not going to. A New Yorker's not going to carry
He's
the
like
day.
a Biden. Yeah, he might take some votes away from Biden.
But no, I think, and I hate to say it, that I think that it's the center, like the.
That's what it always is, and that's what it always comes down.
And that person's got to be a draw to the left of the Democratic Party and bring them in. It can't be trying to pull people from the center to the left.
They could see the stain.
I tell you what, I really think this is largely in the hands of women.
Okay.
I mean, I really
And
do.
young people.
I mean, this is this is the 26 times accused of sexual assault. On the air, destroying everything. And I grew up in white Southern Christian house, and they universally went for Trump for these authoritarian reasons. And this kind of whole fear and the very idea that maybe he's the Antichrist and like Jesus is coming again. I mean, you've got to shift suburbia in Texas, at least. You've got to moderate white women to win.
Okay. Who's going to get that?
I don't
Okay.
know.
Not getting a response. I would just bring him on.
Who?
Somebody's on the line.
That's what I was suggesting. Someone's on the line.
All right, let's get him on.
Let's find out who it is.
We're all into this.
Let's
Here we
find out
go.
Who's on the line?
Political
Let's find out who's on the line.
who's-
It's a new segment. Who's on the line?
Ding dong.
Apparently you're on with on Planet Green Trees. Please identify yourself. How you doing? Jim, get on it. Help
Who is
facilitate
this, Jim?
Oh, hold on.
You want to talk to me at all?
Here we go. All right.
All right. Hello. How we doing?
Is someone breathing and laughing in the background?
Like
Hello.
I said, I'm just listening.
Who is it?
I just called in to listen.
Okay. Oh, never mind then. Very good. So we're no part of the
He's just listening.
live.
Insist that he join the conversation.
That wasn't him.
DEA,
We're
man.
gonna star 69 now. Actually.
No, he's backing it to
Will
you. He's backing it
find
to
you.
you.
Just like if our lighter goes missing.
Jim has certain
we
skills.
will put-
You were
Circus
responsible for these
He will
authoritarian
find.
meetings.
Thanks for reminding me.
I have a certain set of skills.
Good job. When do we need a break
Yum.
to regather our...
They were supposed to call between now and 9. That's why we assumed that they might have been.
Well,
Well, maybe we should take a break.
we will.
Well,
We're going to have to
it
take
is
a break.
between 8:45 and 9 right
And
now. So if they were
I'm
to
not
call
sure how
and
this
we
is
were
gonna
on a
work.
break, then we would not get their call. But so we should stay here till at least 9 to see if they call, right?
Well, we can take a break.
Let's take a break.
Quick break.
We won't leave the general area.
Let's do a couple of shout-outs real quick. There was some word that Bob Redden was going to be on the show.
Robert
I used,
going on?
Redden.
I used
Where
to
is
do a
he?
Bob Redden shout-out every week. That's one. I haven't done a shout-out to my...
Bob Redden's behind setting up the Danny Trevino thing. He was the.
Okay,
I
that's
thought he
nice.
was going to be here, actually helping to facilitate with that, but might be. He helped to get the call in set up. Put it that
All right,
way.
without blaming him, I just wanted to give him a shout-out. Fine, it's all right. Just kidding. Dewey, I was hanging out with Dewey this past week. He was back in play. We had a good time running around. Because as I always say, and it's so true, everybody needs a Dewey.
Yes.
Gotta have a Dewey.
And my dear friend Alan Peisner, who I week after week forget to give a shout out to. I don't think he listens to the show anymore. Refuses to come here and seemingly won't call in and do a legal update like we all cherish those moments when he does.
He was very good.
Yeah, Alan, we want to have you back. And let's do a quick what's going on at Grow Green lately.
What's going on at Grow Green? It's
It's a whole segment we could do.
I just got a shipment from Grow Green.
Oh, did
I just
you?
say, yeah.
Doing the women grow thing that's coming up over there.
Oh, yeah. Last on December 5th, we had a puff and paint at Grow
Yeah, I
Green.
saw that. I saw
So
the
we had
photos.
53 people come out, and they painted a picture of I Love Michigan, and had a.
Did you take them with him, or are they on display at Grow Green?
No,
is there like a
they did
museum
take
there
it with
now?
them. It was kind of
Okay.
like I think they have those. What is it? Paint and wine.
Painting with a twist.
Painting
and
with a twist.
Puff
yep.
puff paint.
So
There's
this
a couple
is,
of them.
yeah, so it was a cannabis painting.
That's nice.
But it was
That's awesome.
it was pretty nice. Everybody had a good time out there. So yeah.
Do you still have your master growers night and all that?
We do. We definitely still have those. We're actually changing it up a little bit for next year. We're going to be doing them on Saturdays. It's going to be on the afternoon, but we have a pretty good conference in March coming up. It's the Regenerative Organics Conference. We're seeing a lot of people that are trying to grow no-till soil and not put all the fertilizers so that they can grow the highest grade cannabis.
What's
So,
no-till soil? Please explain to the listeners.
It's basically where you're getting your soil prepared so that it's just fed with amendments and like cover crops.
Like the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendments? I had to do that.
You don't disturb it and tear it all up.
Ones are usually the ones
The
that
soil
are
is
in
a
trouble.
It creates a living system in there that you don't
Yep.
disturb. You don't like.
I see. Right.
Yeah.
You create a little area to plant, but that's about it.
Right, and we're finding a lot of people using beneficial bugs, so we actually sell bugs to help kill the other bugs. We say they're slaves till death, so they actually kill for you. Yeah, no ladybugs. Actually, specific like hypasis beetles that go chase after things and nematodes.
So they don't
Yeah,
affect
it's pretty
the
cool.
plants that don't affect the plants, bugs that don't affect the plants, but actually protect them.
Yeah, protect them and go eat the eggs of other bad bugs.
Oh,
a lot of
that's
people
cool.
with rusted mites and stuff like that. So it's
Right, 'cause
a big,
Michi-
big conference in March. We got that coming up, and we got our spring expo and our fall expo. But I'd say probably the biggest game changer at Grow Green has been LED lights.
Let's hear about that. What about LED
I mean,
lights?
Fluence
As
LED
opposed to
lights.
what? As opposed to high sodium. What do they call
Yeah,
it?
I mean, a lot of people traditionally would grow with HPS lights, and then they moved up to DE double-ended lights, which is still using a fixture that generates quite a bit of heat. LED lights
and electricity, a lot of electricity burn, right?
Yeah, nope, definitely over 1,000 watts. So people are flipping over to LEDs now. They're getting 2 to 3 pounds per LED. They're reducing their energy footprint and on their DTE bill by over 40%.
When you say LED light, is it something special about it as an LED light? Does it have a certain amount of wattage as an LED light?
You know what, the wattage isn't really, it's interesting. They start talking about different measurements now with LEDs. So
wait, let me ask you
light emitting diodes, and you basically are, they'll actually at 635 watts, they'll put out so many photons. They measure the photon density of how much light's coming out of that. They call it like PPF and PPFD. So it's some specific nanometers of the LED light will actually generate different footprints on the plant. We're seeing that a lot of far reds will increase terpenes. So I mean, the technology is really here now, and definitely people were flipping over just to save their money on the electric bill. You know, you're not replacing your light for 8 years, Michael. I mean, it's huge. I mean, you'll never.
There's certain LED lights that are now designed for this, right? That you're suggesting.
Yeah, I mean, typically, like an LED light would last anywhere between 50 to 80,000 hours, and they say after 8 years that 10% of the diodes are probably going to fail, and the lights are still working. So you honestly, you would never change the light bulb. How many people does it take to change the light bulb?
Well, it doesn't. So the point of this, I think, from a technology standpoint, is normally these other, I always call them high sodium, you call them
HPS, yeah.
All right, they have a lot of energy they need to create the light. There's certain light spectrum, a lot of heat comes out of it, and with all that being said, the real key to that is that it stays on a certain period of time in order to give the impression to the plants to grow the plants in the method of the flower. So it doesn't matter that. But the point being that you can use less energy for the lights, as long as they still, use the pattern of the.
And the
harvest,
LED lights,
right?
we're finding that they're full spectrum, so they have the whole a wider spectrum than the HPS lights, and some of the quality is going way to another level when we're trying to grow specific strains to the next level. And again, having the low energy, the increased yields, there's a lot of benefits that people are seeing. Honestly, people are actually installing furnaces in their grow rooms now, which is unheard of because they have to heat the plants because the LED lights aren't producing the heat, And
as opposed to where they normally are air conditioning or coolers, right?
Right, and there's such new technologies like Science LED. You can dial in the color spectrum from your phone. So if you want to give it far red or different blues. So again, I went to a conference down in Texas about different spectrums of LED light and what it could do to plants to change the CBD, the cannabinoid profile of the plant. So I mean, it's really here.
For traditional, just whatever randomness that you could ascertain and answer for this, someone growing 12 plants with the HPS light system, 1 or 12, let's say, their average light bill would be approximately what versus running LED lights in the same setting? And you're still going with one LED plant per light?
Yeah, I would say so. One HPS light, just to keep the math simple, would cost somebody around $100 for DTE
or
for your DTE energy bill, right? The light price changes, but the DTE every month you're going to pay them $100. And then depending on how many of those lights you have in a room, if you had over, like, let's say 4, you would have to add AC to that. The AC is another $20, so you're paying $120 per month for one light. And then if you calculate what an LED light is, that's $60. So if you had 10 HPS lights in a room, you're going to be running around $1,200. And then if you had 10 LED lights, you're going to be paying about $600. So it's literally half. I mean, in one of the places that I grow, I've actually replaced all of my lights to LED, and my energy bill has been cut in half. And again, I'm not replacing those lamps every 6 months or 9 months. So it's really interesting technology that's finally here, and people are even adding, again, different color spectrums to push the plant to a new level. It's really good.
Fascinating.
Thanks for having me again, Michael. It's great to be
Pleasure.
here.
It's interesting stuff. We wanted more information as it becomes, become more transparent about being able to teach and educate people.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they said there was actually out of the licensed facilities, over 60% of the licensed facilities that are going in Michigan right now, they're putting LED lights over DE or ceramic metal halide.
Wow.
So I mean, that type of flip right there, that investment is huge. I mean, some of these places, they're growing some vertical racking. They're going 3 feet stories up 30 feet in the air with LED lights. So definitely pretty cool.
Good stuff. All right, so what should take a break? Where'd Jim go? He's usually the one that tells us what. He just left out?
I just got a text saying they're going to call us.
Oh, they're getting ready to call
Stay
us.
on for that.
Who's this? My friend
Danny.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, Danny's calling.
Let's see. It's at 9 o'clock. Is there restrictions on us being available, Jamie? Because of
I don't know. They just texted and said they're going to call soon. I just waited for them to be on.
Okay. All right. Good.
Could
So
say you call 15 minutes.
Yeah. We'll get a quick break.
Well, since you're in charge of everything, should we take a break now? I think we should take a break, right?
Take a break.
All right, fine.
Yeah, we can still monitor if they're on, and we
Okay,
can come
good.
back on.
Yeah, as soon
We'll
as
just
they
run
call,
back
we'll
There is
just-
no guarantee that if we take a break, that we'll get them.
well, somebody's gonna
No, it
text you.
stays on right here. We can see that they're calling in, right? And then we just go right back
He
on.
may not have as much time. That's the point of what we're talking about, but it's fine. All right. Do we figure anything out? Can we take a break?
I don't know. It's up to Jamie.
Okay.
It's texting out.
It's texting him now.
We got some other topics we'll be talking about, such as the CDC findings on the vaping deaths and whether that is actually a thing or is unclear, and how clear that really is. And I always like to rail on the abundance of prosecutorial misconduct. And there's an article here we're talking about, is there anything we can learn from it? But that also gives me a chance to discuss the king in the courtroom and why 93% of all cases that are in the criminal system end up pleading guilty, and what we like to call that is the herding of people into the plea of guilty system. Jamie, you're reporting to us what?
I have texted saying, please call back around 9:10, 9:15.
Okay, good. So we're good for a quick break.
Break down.
I have not received a response, but they do have that, so it should be good.
All right, Henry.
We will be available for them when they call.
One text away.
And what do you need? Lighter?
We need the lighter.
Okay. Good stuff.
Not for a
We'll
joint.
take a quick break and be right back, according to Tommy.
We're
Listen
going to
Planet
try out
Green
this
Trees.
hemp.
Right back.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
We're here live at the exclusive provisioning center in Ann Arbor for the first day of recreational marijuana sales. We're waiting for the 10 o'clock open. We've got about an hour, but there's plenty of great folks here with us in line. And like I told my buddy Bob, hell, I've been waiting for 44 years for this. Another hour's not going to kill me, especially to be in the company of such excellent people who've been waiting just as long as I have. As I had pointed out earlier, this is a fantastic event, a culmination of decades of hard work, jail time, suffering, sacrifice, and a lot of positivity. So shout out to the medical marijuana community here in the state of Michigan for making this happen. Let's see here, guys. It's your boy, Uncle Jesse. There's the front end of the line before the turn into the store, exclusive provisioning center here in Ann Arbor, man. Again, I keep pointing it out because it's a celebration. This culmination of decades of hard work from some of the OGs, from a lot of advocates and activists. A lot of people have gone to jail. A lot of people have been arrested and treated like shit, had their lives devastated for simple possession. And here we are. Look at this. Look at this, baby. Look at this line. All the way down. All for the sale of adult use cannabis here in the state of Michigan. But I definitely wanted to make sure that I was up here today to document this historic occasion. As I said, man, lots of hard work, lots of trials, tribulations, sacrifices were made in order to have this day. I know I'm with the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association, and we were going to get up here, and then we were debating because of the weather, and then I was like, FTS, baby! We did it, right? So thank every one of you for coming out today. Thanks for making marijuana legal. Let's get it, guys. Make some noise, come on! So right on, man, right on. It's happening. It is happening here. Exclusive provisioning in Ann Arbor. Legal adult use sales. Coming to a place near you soon, right? And shout out to all the OGs who worked hard, like Adam Brooks and Michael Komorn and Rick Thompson and all these guys that have been busting their ass trying to make this happen for decades. You know, shout out, tip of the hat to them guys. So we don't know that it's overpriced yet, but we do support local farmers. As a matter of fact, to the degree that we hope that most of the provisioning centers are utilizing the emergency rules, allowing us to buy right from the caregivers and the local farmers through the processors and the growers, man. So, you know, yes, we absolutely do support local farmers. I, for one, believe that is the heartbeat and the blood life of all marijuana in Michigan. And until our market is fully saturated and stocked, we're going to need these caregivers. So don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. So again, guys, we're here. Exclusive provisioning center in Ann Arbor, here for the opening day of recreational sales. Look, we're here. Yeah. Yep, we are here. Reporting for the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association on this historic day. Woo!
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture has returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
It ain't fair, John Sinclair, in the stir for breathing air. It ain't fair, John Sinclair, in the stir for breathing air. Set him free, let him be, breathing air like you and me. What's the judge to do? What else can Judge Columba do? We got to set him free. This whole place went nuts. If he was a soldier man, shooting gooks in Vietnam. If he was CIA, selling dope and making hay, he'd be free, breathing air like you and me. What's a judge do? What else could Judge Columba do? Well, we got to set him free. And sure enough, that was Saturday, and then next Monday, John Sinclair walked out of jail. And the Supreme Court issued an opinion in People versus John Sinclair that said, it's cruel, it's unusual, it's arbitrary, it's irrational, it's capricious, and it cannot be the law in the state of Michigan that we treat marijuana the same way we treat opioids. And they set him free. Hi, I'm Jeff Frazier. I'm one of the attorneys at Komorn Law in Michigan. And on behalf of poet John Sinclair, some doctors, some pharmacists, some organizations, we're suing the Michigan Board of Pharmacy to finally, once and for all, to remove marijuana from the Michigan list of controlled substances. John Sinclair was and is a poet provocateur, an adamant opponent and protester against America's involvement in the Vietnam War and all the bombings. He was organized together with Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin and the Black Panthers guys. And, he organized against the war. And in his words, we were protesting the war and we were advocating for the legalization of marijuana, all the while smoking vast quantities of it. We ought to do something about finally getting this plant off of the controlled substances list. We have law where the state of Michigan is licensing the medical use of marijuana. At the same time, it says under the Board of Pharmacy says under the Controlled Substances Act that it is still a controlled substance. And not only is it still a controlled substance, it's still a Schedule I controlled substance. And being Schedule I controlled substance means that it is contraband per se, and that its mere presence is evidence of a crime, and it justifies the raids. Michigan State Police spend 40% of their resources going after marijuana that is allowed for medical use, is licensed by the state, is now been voted into law by the people of this state to be legal for adult use. And yet it's still 40% of the police budget, still 40% of the prosecutor's daily load, it's still 40% of the Michigan State Police Crime Lab daily load. And it's still Schedule I, which justifies the stops, the searches, the seizures, and more importantly, the raids. And that means men with AR-15s and ski masks going in where men, women, and children and dogs and grandparents, are quietly sitting there watching TV. And because the neighbor complained of the smell of marijuana coming from a basement window, these patients or caregivers and now any citizen in the state is allowed to grow. The continued placement of marijuana on the Michigan State list of controlled substances is just simply absurd. Hopefully we'll get our hearing. If not, then we'll fight it out in the Court of Appeals and ultimately back to the Supreme Court that originally spoke in the case of John Sinclair back in 1971. It's time for, this absurdity that has forever lived at the heart of the drug war to be done with. And the way to do that is to take marijuana off the controlled substances list altogether. It's no longer to be policed. It's to be regulated.
Komorn Law. Michael Komorn is one of the top attorneys in Michigan that has experience and dedication in criminal defense law to provide clients with results. Komorn Law, the best damn criminal defense lawyers, period.
Keep going.
Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
Alrighty. Welcome back. Episode number 400 and what did we say?
45.
Okay. Jim, what are we calling it?
It's called Fuck Comcast.
All right. All right. We are still waiting the call in from potential guest Danny Trevino, victim of federal intervention in medical marijuana
Federal
behavior.
fuckery.
And surprising that it's still going on.
Do they reverse his charges if it actually is descheduled federally? Like if, like in 10 years, if Danny was charged for some state, whatever they're calling this, and then in 10 years, are they going to reverse that and let him go, or?
Good question.
What, I mean, it depending on what sentencing they give him.
He's supposed to get. It's supposed to be a severe sentence.
Severe, that's what I
kind of knows
heard.
what it is within a guideline. I mean, I think the court has some. It's an interesting situation. During the Obama administration, I remember this because I had a federal case that involved medical marijuana in Michigan, and it was really interesting because I think it was in the second. It must have been the second term of Obama, but Eric Holder had spoken to the San Francisco Bar Association, where he made this announcement about what the federal government's position was going to be about medical marijuana as it stood. And there was a co-memorandum, which was a policy-driven idea, but they also announced that they would have a new policy of what prosecutors can do, which is to exercise their discretion, which they have, regarding what types of charges they're going to bring. What they do, what doing in these marijuana cases, they would charge the manufacturing of marijuana is count one.
Right.
And count two is manufacturing marijuana over 100 plants. Okay? The over 100 plants gets the mandatory minimum of 5 years. Okay?
Oh.
So if you're just charged with manufacturing marijuana, it's still a 5-year maximum federal penalty, but there's no mandatory minimum, because over the 5. So what they would do is the idea was that they'd say, okay, we don't have to charge you with the over 100. We can just charge you with the other one. In fact, the case that I had, they actually dismissed that case. The
Really?
second count,
Yeah.
and my client then was not subject to mandatory. Like, it was interesting because the policy changed, and the announcement was like on a Monday. So out in San Francisco by Thursday, and we're supposed to go to court on Friday. The assistant U.S. attorney, did you get the memo? He's like, I got the memo, and we're dismissing this count. We're actually in our discretion, etc. And he actually, and I'm telling you, the judge that we had in federal court liked that he was not compelled,
Right.
because they don't want to be forced to. They want to be able to
Right.
exercise their discretion. They may still send him to prison,
Right.
but they want to at least have the. And he wanted to, and there was a lot of equities here. You know what I mean? It was, and I was
take
even
a while
arguing
for
that
it
he
to
would
get-
be in compliance in the Michigan medical marijuana. We'd have a defense.
Right.
It's crazy. It's been in federal court. So, with that being said, how do we get here with Danny Trevino's case? I don't know. I know that the Eastern District and the Western District have dealt with this quite differently. I think we know this because of the candidate that ran against the current Attorney General. Seemed to forget that areas out of Lansing have always been hit really hard by the Western District of the federal government's the prosecutions on that side, as opposed to the Eastern District. Seemingly,
that guy was so out of whack. Though there's some discussion on because part of the story is that case had laid dormant for 2 years before he was appointed to office, and his office revived it and then prosecuted.
Danny's case?
Miles Jr. on Ryan Basor and Yoakum Seven's case.
Okay.
When you were talking about him being in opposition to Dana, and that was all.
Right.
That was
But
all
I'm saying,
part of
he
actually. I just want to point out, he actually thought, or so it's been discussed, that by doing that would help out his chances of being elected Attorney General. He's still that old kind of school.
Sure. And it took him a little while to get educated on it, but I'm wondering if, what's the impetus now? I mean, the U.S. Attorney's Office out there is not, they can do whatever they want. The argument would be that he'd be protected under state law protections, and maybe the federal government would be precluded from using tax dollars. There's this Rohrabacher Amendment. This rider to the government's budget for the DEA includes not using force. What? Are they on?
They're going to call about 3 minutes or so.
Nice. 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
We don't need to get into all that, I guess. I should not really ask questions, but I was just giving a backdrop to...
Backdrop to bullshit.
Hey. Jeanette is officially here. Welcome, John. There you go. Take over there. So, should we talk about prosecutors and misconduct, what we can learn from them, Jim? While we're waiting, or should we just...
What can we learn from prosecutor misconduct? It's a question. I don't know.
Well...
Whack bad apples or fix unsafe barrels.
I'll wait till the call comes in. It's a whole other topic.
Blame only or prevention too. These are all good topics.
It's very strange that they're prosecuting federally marijuana. It's been low prioritized.
It has been.
Danny has a story too, and maybe get into it, or maybe there's not enough time.
No, I want to hear that.
He's beat like
I know
law enforcement many times, and they just really wanted to get him.
Yeah, they really wanted to get him. They've been after him for a while.
That doesn't seem right. No, but I'm saying that doesn't seem the reason, just to go after him because they can,
Yeah, I mean, he did sell cannabis, and that's federally not, legal, but
He was a little bold.
you know how it works, Michael.
I do, but I still haven't seen name another circumstance where someone has won Section 4, Section 8 defense or immunity, and then the feds pick it up. You know what I mean?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense. The whole point is that if you're in compliance with state law, the feds aren't really supposed to be going after you. But I know what you're saying. It's there's a lot of weird activity that went on in Lansing. You know, can we agree like that? You've got your Ann Arbor of the Ann Arbor, which I think represents a certain acceptance of cannabis, generally speaking. Obviously, even before medical marijuana, they had reduced penalties, and of course, there's other portions of the state that maybe say the same. Lowest law enforcement. I mean, you can think of some cities and towns that are totally against it still. And we're leading the way back then.
Rapids.
But Lansing, let's talk about Lansing for a little bit, because it's been, I don't know that there's a lot of marijuana cases, generally speaking. Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, we know of some disaster federal cases that came out of there, but do we think that county prosecutor has ever been, do you hear about caregivers getting raided up in Lansing a lot?
No.
Right. I mean, there's maybe there's a whole group of lawyers up there that are Lansing lawyers.
That's a very aware prosecutor there. That's a unique situation.
Now,
yeah.
But even before this current one,
it was Gretchen Whitmer, wasn't it?
Okay, and before that that was the city.
Stuart Dunning.
Yeah, it's the city of Lansing.
No,
it's
the county.
County prosecutor.
Bingham County.
All right, good. So
Stuart Dunning he wasn't as good as the current prosecutor, but he was like at least somewhat
not prosecuting marijuana cases. That's anyway. Okay, so the point being that was always a town that that was not inclined to prosecute, right? You see what I'm saying? So there was always some room to maneuver, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it was not. I don't know. They had a lot of ordinances too, approving of the behavior. I know they were licensing a lot of zoned areas to get things done right. Dealing with that same ongoing uncertainty of this local approval, and then the states coming in and hitting people up without addressing it like a nuisance or some civil, and treat it like it's traditional trafficking in narcotics, when places have got certificates of occupancy, they've got videotape, they're, strip
regular.
mall.
Yeah, it's cannabis, but it's like a regular narcotics investigation, and then they make a transfer, a sale or whatever, and record it, and then get a warrant, and a raid.
When they're doing the
they could
business
be
like
shutting these places down civilly, though. I mean, it's
Right.
the whole McQueen thing demonstrated how that could happen. There are nuisances when the illegal transfers are taking place inside.
Yeah, same.
So you could please close down, cease and desist, and then eventually put a lock on the door, but nobody ever has to get arrested or raided over it or anything. I would hope that in the areas where the locals are like okay with it, or at least tolerant, that there is even no need to even deal with it past that.
When it comes right down to it, that's what the state law prescribed, like a local option, opt-in or not. So how ironic is it that is the law, but that didn't matter at the time, and all these places got devastated because of despite local approval, the state was antagonistic to it. How's our call looking, Jim?
Not great. I'm not gonna lie.
So should we learn what we know about prosecutors here? Let's see. We got. Can we learn from prosecutorial misconduct? And how effective are rhetorical questions? We want wayward prosecutors to be held accountable, but does accountable only mean punished? Or is there room for forward-looking accountability that tries to find and eliminate the underlying conditions that will lead to future wrongful convictions if left untouched? The growing list of high-profile exonerations features grotesque episodes of prosecutorial dishonesty. We have dozens of cases imposing decades of wrongful and avoidable imprisonment on the wrong individuals in which buried evidence of innocence would have made a difference. At least one federal judge has argued that violations of Brady versus Maryland, requiring prosecutors to turn over not just inculpatory evidence, but exculpatory evidence, all evidence that may assist the defendant. It's reported that the misconduct has the failure to do that, turn over the Brady material, in Misconduct was implicated in 54% of all exonerations and in 71% of homicide exonerations. So let's think about that for a second. We're talking about evidence that should be turned over, discoverable, and is going to assist the defendant in their defense. So in 54% of the time when a person's conviction or they were exonerated afterwards, after they've been convicted, 54% of the time there was prosecutor Brady violations that resulted in the convictions. And in homicide exoneration, if someone's convicted of a homicide, 71% of the time, prosecutors failing to turn over evidence that would have helped in the defense was a basis for it. Now, it's kind of interesting because Jeff should be in here. There's a...
well, I think the term was strikes and balls in our situation. It was like they were not giving us the right, the right information and chopping the video up to make a certain view.
And the notes.
Yeah, the
notes. What are you looking at there? The notes. All right, I guess we got our caller. Is that right, Jim Powers? That's right. All right.
Right.
Is Bob Redden involved in this?
Indeed, help facilitate.
All right, well, Bob, if you could help, thanks, Bob. You gave a shout out to you earlier.
And Sydney helped facilitate too.
Sydney? Okay. I think we're trying to get on, according to Jim Powers, who's running the board over there. We're going to have Danny Trevino is supposed to be with us. Is it true?
Nice.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Well liked in the industry.
Okay. Here momentarily.
Okay.
He only has time in 15-minute increments that he has to pay for. So eventually, basically, the phone call will end for his end, and then he has the choice to call back or not, and continue talking. So if you guys could just bear with me for that, and bear with him for that, that's just something we're having to work around. So he will call me back momentarily, and he gets 15 minutes to speak on about his case and everything that's going on. As of right now, his sentencing is being adjourned to 8th, 2020 at 9 a.m. And he's calling back right now, actually, so that's perfect timing. I'll have him right here to tell his story himself. I'm sorry, one moment here. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Here he is.
Hello?
Danny, thanks for calling in. This is Michael Komorn here on Planet Green Trees, and can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. I know we don't have a lot of time, and I know that people are very interested in what happened here, and you have a story that you want to kind of explain. But I'm a lawyer, so I know that you should probably be, limited in what you say. I don't want you to say anything that's gonna. But tell us what happened. How did you find yourself in a federal case, and what went wrong here?
Okay, well, I don't know how I ended up in federal court. I can only speculate on certain things. Well, in 2011, we were raided in Lansing and in Jackson. And in Lansing, we were raided by the Attorney General's office. They took us to court in Lansing, and at that time, Judge Hugh Clark knew the case out. They also took us to court in Jackson, and they lost in trial. And so with those two things going on, we opened up in Mount Pleasant. I think was the next city. Because in our head, we were thinking, okay, well, our interpretation of the law was obviously more law enforcement interpretation of the law. We had the ruling and the acquittal ejected. Well, as the years went by, we ended up having more. As the years went by, we started to open up in other cities, but we started to see that it was more up to the city if they allow you to open up or not. For instance, Ann Arbor was okay with it. Traverse City was okay with it. Detroit, Lansing, Flint, Jackson still has them in there. St. Mount Pleasant now still has it. Opened up some new ones, I'm not sure. But anyway, as that was developing, we encountered different state-countered law enforcement in the city. In Jackson, we actually encountered them 8 different times. Acquittal, they didn't charge them forfeiture. And we ended up winning all the forfeitures back. Nothing ever prospered out of Jackson. But what ended up happening, they indicted me. They brought back all the cases throughout the state, and all the state cases that we had won. So I guess I don't know exactly how the feds can confirm under consumption, the whole Obama administration holding back prosecution, and Colorado holding in their industry, Central Arizona, and with the rider bill in place in 2014, that are only issues would be with the state or the cities, depending on if they allow that type of business in there. Anyways, I ended up in federal court, and which I took the stand on my own behalf. The truth has always worked for us, and basically when I took the stand, I told the truth. And I felt, once I took the stand, I felt like I nailed it, man. I just didn't. I mean, if you could have been there when the jury was being selected, it was unreal. I didn't think that prosecution was a chance in hell of winning this. I didn't think they had any type of chance of winning. As the case started to develop, though, the law enforcement was, man, they weren't doing. Let me tell you a story. We encountered law enforcement at a grow. I wouldn't give them consent until I knew that everything was being recorded, video recorded, because of the stuff I had went through. So I gave them consent. When actually before we came, I made the tapes rolling, and I asked the officer, I said, I don't want the grow being poured out, and I need to know what your interpretation of the law is, because it was different. From my experience, it was different between the city and between the officers. And it was just, I don't know, I figured that if I was going to go in front of a jury or in front of a judge, I wanted it all recorded so it's not an officer's word versus mine. So anyway, they recorded everything. But they still tore out the grow. They said that because I had a key to the building, that it made the grow illegal. That's not what he told me prior to come in. Now, here's the ironic. Once we got into federal court, the videos were mysteriously disappeared. It's just weird stuff like that. Like one time I pulled up into Jackson at a building they had raided, and I was throwing my trash in the dumpster, and an officer pulled up and I was making an illegal trash dump. And I said, how? It's my trash and it's my building. And you guys know this because you raided me not too long. So anyways, he called in JNet at the time, and the same officers who had came to the 7 to the other 8 raids in there, and I'm indicted on that. I actually sued those officers and I won for illegal search. They actually indicted me, and I was convicted on that, even though they were ordered to give me back my money. All the other 8 raids that they had, when they raided us, they charged us on the first one. We won by acquittal, and the 7 others that followed, they had to give us back all the forfeitures. But I guess it just doesn't matter in federal court. I don't know if you know this or not, my case, they converted my cash into marijuana grams by dividing the cash by $8 a gram. I don't know who set that price, but the $8 a gram thing is far-fetched. The second thing that confused me was they had to give that money back, so it wasn't like an illegal process that ever occurred. But again, I was convicted on it, and that was used towards my quantity amount. I'm convicted of 1,000 kilograms. To anybody who's listening, 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams. So the conspiracy goes back to 2010. Now, why they allowed it to build up, just for numbers' sake, is my opinion. But why they let it just build up is beyond me. They had an open and shut case in 2011 or 10. I don't know why they would keep letting it go unless the Obama thing was real and the rider bill worked and somehow they jumped through a loophole. But when you ask me how did I end up here, I don't know.
Right. I mean, we were talking about how you had beaten a number of we were talking about before we knew that you had litigated a number of cases successfully throughout the state, and that would mean either it would lend itself to some evidence that you were in state compliance, and the federal law and the policy at the time that was given notice is that first, if you were in state compliance, they weren't going to prosecute you. You know, there had to be a regulated system. You know, there was other factors, but then in the last years, the rider, as you mentioned, the Rohrbecker amendments and the riders with the DEA budget precluded any prosecutions or use of federal dollars by the DEA or U.S. Attorney's Office to prosecute medical marijuana patients or caregivers that were in compliance. So that's why I was asking the question, how did you get there? You know, and I know that sometimes the federal government will charge you with a crime if someone's beaten a case at the state level, but which is always a possibility. They can do that. There's different elements test and where double jeopardy doesn't apply because it's at a federal level versus the state level, and that's always a way that they can do that. But seemingly now with marijuana, if you are in state compliance, which your cases suggest you were by the success, as you mentioned, the forfeiture and either beating it through the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. But so you went to trial, of course, as you mentioned, and you thought it went well. You thought you picked a good jury. And what was it that was so that you think impacted it? I mean, you weren't allowed to testify. I mean, did they let you testify about your intentions, even though it wasn't a defense per se? Were you able to get on the stand and say, I did this because I'm a medical marijuana caregiver and blah, 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 blah? And even with that said, a lot of times the federal courts will then read an instruction to the jury that says, you cannot consider medical marijuana. Did it go something like that?
That's exactly what happened. Because after I took the stand, I felt comfortable that the jury understood. I wasn't breaking any laws. That was actually yours, and it just came back to Colorado. And I was like, there's no way I'm losing. And it's just, I don't know, man. The jury instruction is what hurt me. I'm confident of it because I had used the truth for so long that I was comfortable using the truth.
But
and,
the judge would have told the judge probably told the jury to disregard any sympathy or compassion that they might have for your claims of medical use. It's not a defense in federal court, like that kind of stuff, right?
It was similar. I don't remember if he said any compassion or stuff on there. I do know that he said my medical marijuana was not a defense, and they weren't allowed to use it. I did hear that part. I just felt like, I don't know, I had heard similar stuff like that in state courts, and it didn't matter to the jury.
Right. The jury
still said not guilty.
Right. And that was because you took this.
I'm wondering if the jury thought they get in trouble.
Because so you're saying that at the state court level, at times you had, despite being denied the right to present a defense, as any defendant is allowed to, even with that kind of ruling, you can take the stand and say, I did this for these reasons, such as for medical marijuana reasons, like they can't stop you from testifying about that. However, the way that they get around that, the court, if it's not quote-unquote relevant because it's not a defense that you're allowed, is a read an instruction to the jury. Essentially what that sometimes could be described as jury nullification, right? The jury has a right to vote with its conscience, always. And that's the general principles of the jury. That's why we have juries, despite the fact that a judge may instruct them that they can't consider those things. And that's essentially what you're saying. Like the people saw through the government's facade of you not being able to, get a defense for medical marijuana, and the jury acquitted you for those reasons. You're saying though that the way that it was laid out in federal court was had much more of an impact on the perspective of the jury, right?
That's my assumption, yes. I'm wondering if the jury was, like the juries in the state court didn't care. I think it's because they knew they wouldn't get into any trouble. I am assuming, from what my juries aren't comfortable going against what the judges say, especially if if the judge says you'll be in violation of violating your oath, then that might deter them from saying, hey, I know what's going on, I'm going to say not guilty anyway. I do not feel that prosecution that, hey, Mr. Trevino was shipping in marijuana from Canada and selling it to anybody who walks in or not even walks in the front door. We had open time, and you had to show your card twice. Actually, the officers, when they testified to having medical marijuana cards. But still,
you have 1 minute left.
It still didn't seem to help me in the end. They convicted me within 1 hour. So, I think the timing of ending the case.
You're gonna get. Is it true?
5 o'clock.
I know you got it.
He's got about 30 seconds.
You got 30 seconds.
This is going to cut off, but he has the ability. He has the ability to call back.
Okay.
So just bear with us, please.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Tell us when the sentencing is. We missed that at the beginning.
January 28th, 9 a.m. in Grand Rapids, the Gerald R. Ford Federal Building.
That may be a mistake, though.
No, it's just confirmed. It's just confirmed. Charity wants me to let you know she just figured out it's confirmed Grand Rapids.
All right. Well, Maloney is in Kalamazoo, so do I still have Maloney?
Boom. Damn. That was the court question. Okay. Yeah, he will call right back. So his question is, and our question is as well, so we believe he'll be getting a new judge, obviously, if he's going from Kalamazoo Grand Rapids. So that was his ending question there, and everybody's question at this point is who he's going to be dealing with and what the circumstance of changing locations. We're not sure what's going on at this point completely, but it is confirmed. At least we do have a date. It is January 28th at 9 a.m. in Grand Rapids. Like I was saying, it's the Gerald R. Ford Federal Building. It's the same building he turned himself in.
The trial court was where, though? It was in. It wasn't in Grand Rapids. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Where was?
Same building? Gerald R.
No, I know that, but that's where the sentencing is. You said he's moving to a different county to get. And you think there's going to be a different judge, right?
It's in Grand Rapids now, so it's going to be a different judge, and we're trying to figure things out as far as that goes. It's new information as we go. We just figured out, confirmed that it's Grand Rapids.
So is it necessarily just a different judge because it's being
Well,
heard
usually the trial court's the one that's going to do the sentencing. And there's some state law. I know you have a right to have the sentencing in front of that judge, and you can make a to-do out of it. I want to ask him if was he punished more because he went to trial? There's like his penalties, because if you plead guilty in federal court, there's an incentive. You get points taken out of your guidelines versus if you exercise your rights. Yeah, if you exercise your rights.
I believe this man was punished in absolutely every way possible, inhumanely. There's no book or rules to this stuff. I feel like they're just bending anything that they have to. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. The logic they're using to try to frame this man. Like, how many times does he have to sue them and win? How many times does he have to be raided and still, be abiding by the laws and be harassed on his own property? It's just pretty ridiculous. All these people that are operating just like him and not being dealt with in this manner and don't have to fear for their lives or their family's lives. I mean, this is gang stalking at its finest. We're dealing with the government that's targeting people, and he just happens to be one of the biggest people, that they're targeting.
Who was representing him at sentencing?
I feel for this man because, he's a family man. He just called back right here, so if you could literally just bear with us for just a moment. He's back.
I'm here.
So, Danny.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear him. I was talking before we got you back on that you probably have a general idea of what your guidelines are, and the court has some discretion. I was mentioning before that there's some mandatory minimums if we're talking about a weight or number over, as you said, I think 1,000 grams equivalent to 1,000 plants. What is it? Mandatory 10? Is that what the? Probably something to that effect. But I wanted to ask you about: has your lawyer discussed with you and/or the contemplation of how there's a more severe sentence because you went to trial, forced the government to prove its case? Explain to the listeners how that plays out.
Okay, well, when we did the pre-sentence report, when I received it back, the recommendation from the guidelines was 266 months and 327 months. The government objected and said I should be placed at a base level of 40 because I'm the leader of more than 4 people. Also, they said that because I rented the building for the purpose of medical marijuana, that I should also get another 2-point enhancement, which put me at a base level of 40. So basically, I am facing 360 months to life by the prosecutor's recommendation. My attorney's trying to counter it because some of the criminal history doesn't fit. But I guess in 2001, I was convicted of 2.5 pounds, and then a month prior to that, I was pulled over with 3 ounces. And that made me almost 20 years old by the time I get sentenced. But conspiracy, you're able to go back to the beginning of the conspiracy. And if you are sentenced for more than 60 days, then they can go back 15 years, which pushed my criminal history back into play. So a lot of people think that they can only go back 10 years. Some people think 15. But they can go back even further. So I'm looking at 360 months to life by my calculations. My attorneys really haven't given me any insight on what else could happen. Although I will say this, I hired a couple of appellate attorneys, and they said that the United States Sentencing Commission, and I don't know if this is his exact words, but I want to say something real. They posted something to the judges to let them know they don't have to necessarily sentence within the guidelines anymore. Also, the United States Sentencing Commission had posted online, I don't remember what year, but they said the average sentence for federal charges are 29 months. They also said that the charges federally have declined since states that became legal. They have declined 45%. So, like I said, I don't know how. I a federal crime. I mean, they
Well,
didn't cross any state line.
For sentencing purposes, I know that for sentencing purposes, I know the exact thing you're talking about, and there's a point to be made that the Sentencing Commission and the judges in federal court are supposed to consider the up-to-date policies of the Sentencing Commission, and all of those reports from the Sentencing Commission have been recommendations to lower the amount of prisoners that result from nonviolent drug offenses. I mean, that's the trend. That's how they've been reporting. Your lawyer can refer to those things within the Sentencing Commission as a basis for the court to look beyond that. I mean, there's so much in today's current jurisprudence of the equities and mitigating factors that apply to, and the court can consider when it has the discretion to do so. Some of the crimes don't allow for any discretion, right? If it's a mandatory 10, the court it's got the guidelines. The guidelines become discretionary, not with mandatory minimum cases, and I know that the Obama administration, I had a federal case at one point where we were talking about this before, they utilize their discretion to not charge the over 100 plants or over 1,000 plants or over 1,000 grams or whatever it is. It's those counts that make the mandatory minimums. And if you take those away, then the court has the discretion to sentence, within the guidelines, outside of the guidelines, but there's no mandatory minimum. Let me ask you this. Did they make any offers to you beforehand that were something other than 30 months? 30 years in that as a range? They say, look, if you plead now, you get 5 or something?
Right, it was, they offered a musically bargain 4 to 5. He explained to me that once I plead guilty, the PSR would take effect, and I would probably still be looking at anywhere from 9 to 11 years. And still in my head, I didn't do anything wrong, and I thought that the rider bill would protect me, but obviously it doesn't work like that. So, I don't know. I guess they offered me a 1 to 5, but from other people that I'm in here with, they also said the same thing. With they'll plead guilty to one thing and end up with more numbers than what they were told. So I don't know. I hear that being going to trial wasn't a bad thing.
Well, it does. It does, and I talk about it all the time. It's really a bully tactic. The federal government does it when they want to. I think the states do it as well. If you challenge them, I mean, they start out with the idea that they overcharge usually, and then negotiate you down to some kind of plea. 97%, 95% of the people that plead guilty aren't pleading guilty because they're guilty. They're pleading guilty because they want to get out of, what they offered you. You can take 9 years ago, or if we convict you at trial, we're going to give you 30. A lot of people say, give me the 9. I'll take 9. A lot. 97% do. You know what I mean? And that's the point. And this is not just my theory. This is something that is well known in academic and scholarly circles that people, judges, federal judges, they all know this, and the war on drugs has been a disaster, disproportionately punishing people of color, and it's absurd. It's got a certain absolute racist, discriminatory overtone to it, especially where we stand today, considering the state of Michigan legalized in 2018. I'm sickened by this, Danny. I know that it doesn't do anything to this situation, but I want you to know it makes no sense. It's hard to wrap your brain around.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't make any sense. Nobody understands it. Nobody around me understood it. When I mean around me, I meant anywhere I went. They don't understand it. The only two people who understood it were the prosecutor and the judge. Because the jury clearly didn't understand it. I didn't understand it. The guards here don't understand it. To be honest with you, there's a dispensary in Kalamazoo. There had to be a grow somewhere around the federal building because we could smell it. And there's billboards when we would head from Lansing to Kalamazoo. There's billboards displaying marijuana dispensaries. I mean, they told me they showed posts of my Facebook on there, but I mean, if you Google marijuana dispensaries or marijuana deliveries in California or Oregon or wherever, they pop up on a ton. So who's allowed to federally? Obvious. I mean, the federal government will say they're all illegal, but that just can't be true. If the IRS is allowing you to file taxes under that expense, there's actually a case out in the 10th Circuit, or maybe it's the 9th Circuit, I don't remember, but a guy sued a marijuana company. The federal court said that even though it's a marijuana business, they're still held by federal labor laws. Well, then how is that illegal? You know what I mean? I mean, you can file taxes, buy stocks, and I don't know, there's 560 banks that are dealing with marijuana business, according to Fenton. And I don't know, it still got me. It just got me, you know, I don't know what to say. I mean, I face more time than any two people here. Considerably. I looked at the guidelines, I'm 3 notches under treason. Because you're for treason against the United States, you're at base level 43. Child, people who sell kids for pornography are way less than I am. I guess if you aid foreign terrorists, you're at base level 26. And I don't know, there's more in there, but it's such a depressing. So, I don't know, I'm hoping that maybe the Moores Act or HR 388473, from my research, I guess they're retroactive. Is that correct?
The retroactivity of the application of the illegality, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, on the two bills that passed through the House Committee, the Moores Act.
Oh, right. Federally, right. If they pass right now, I think they. I mean, I don't know. I think it will impact. Jeff, it's got to impact the sentencing guidelines if the Moore Act passes, which is the to leave it to the states, or unschedule it. And expungements at federal level. I would hope so. I mean, that's you know, there may be a legislative solution. I hate to think and rely on the federal government for anything. You know, the legislature, they've not, you know. But when you have the executive branch this crazy on these kind of things, where else are you going to get your relief from? You know, I mean, if they're coming at you that hard, then you know, they are. I don't know. They're the most powerful. You know, they're the like the generals. You know, they're like literally like a war general hat, going after people, putting them away. How do you stop it unless the legislature, acts? I hope your judge has some mercy here. There may be some discretion that can be bestowed upon that, but I mean, it's absurd. You know, I mean, Jeff Frazier, you got any thoughts on this? We're talking about this prosecuting federal court. He's subject to 30 years in terms of guidelines. He beat a lot of state cases. You'd think that would doesn't invoke double jeopardy. There's this different elements test, the Blockberger, whatever, and then they. But why now? Why now in this phase? What do they get out of it? Nobody even understands the guards that he's sitting with don't understand it.
No, it's what they do. They're scorpions. It's what they do. It's their nature. Scorpion and frog, you heard that one, right?
No.
The scorpion and frog come up to the riverbank, and scorpion says to the frog, "Hey, let me jump up on your back. Carry me across the river." The frog said, "No way. You'll get halfway across, you'll sting me, and I'll die." The scorpion said, "Well, why would I do that? If you drown, well, I'm going to drown too."
All right, Daddy, listen.
Hey, Danny, this is Tony from Grocery, and I just wanted to say there's a lot of people that know you and heard what's going on with your case, and they're wishing you good, safe travels, brother. I know that's you got a lot ahead of you, but there's a lot of people that definitely care about you out there, just so you know, brother.
Okay, I appreciate it. It's going to hang up when I'm talking, but I want to tell you guys I'm appreciative of you. I thank you. And Mr. Komorn, I've heard a lot of good things about you.
Danny, we wish you well.
Coming back to the state, at least after the day is done. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
All right, safe travels, brother.
You know, I remember. Remember the rally, and we had a rally in Lansing, and I remember he was pivotal, I think, on the PA system to help us. It was pretty badass.
It was a big rally.
It was a good rally. It was the biggest rally, probably, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, I think that the estimate in the papers was 3,000, but I think there was more than that. There for sure.
Yeah. 8,000. I'm going 8.
Jamie was responsible for 99% of them.
Certainly helped out with that one. Joe Kane helped out with that.
I was just going to say, let's give the credit where credit is due. It was the MMA, which is still alive and thriving, by the way, just so you know.
You know,
one of the few organizations that still exists is talking about.
I talked about
patients.
this.
There we go. We got
I talked about
shirts.
this, I think, in the last couple of weeks or so. Wanted to work with ASA or MMA or something like that.
Yeah.
To try to be the resource for those rec places that are going to continue on outside of the medical world, because the MMFLA makes no sense once you can obtain an MRTMA license. But they still should be covering those products that would help out for specifically medical concerns and things that people who are using for, health reasons to still have access to regularly and things like that. But, this ultimately becomes a consumers advocacy group. And I saw Brad Forrester mention that we're kind of lacking that in the mix of everything.
And I would say this, not that it's critical, but like the organization that was being asked about the movement to the recreational market, and that organization suggested that there's lacking in patient representation. That was one of the points that I think came out of that. Which we still have the MMA is still there, it still exists, and we're having events and gatherings and patient and caregiver connections, and the forums, although at times arguably dangerous to some, the light at heart, and that's just forum play. There's a lot of information there that people can gather from there, a lot of insight, a lot of grow information. There's other places that takes place, the events that Tony puts on at Grow Green. I think if you were an interested caregiver or wanting to become a caregiver or adult recreation, you could certainly gather a lot of information from not just the sales staff, but it exists out there, and the MMA has always been one of the places for that kind of learning and safe environment that people can learn and learn and ask questions. And it shouldn't be a problem. It really shouldn't, because it's not even disputed as acceptable in our culture these days. Am I right? I mean, if we got to the recreational point of 50, 55, 60%, but we're at like 80, 85 on medical across the board, right?
Yeah, I think 57 for rec and like 90 for medical.
There you go. Right. It's almost antagonistic, if you're not in favor of it. But so in the context of what we're talking about, Jamie, your point being that there's not going to be a big, catalog of information. We're going to move away from this. It's going to be hard to dial in the needs of some of these folks or people that are seeking it in 2 years from now.
Without things being based on it, some places are going to have to go out of their way to, to have that niche available.
And it's odd because it's part of the commercial market, right? The commercial market is what would do that. I don't think, if you stopped right now and said to the people that have been engaged in this, my patients matter. I want to keep growing for my patients. But the commercial market would have just the opposite effect. In 2 years from now, there's literally no financial incentive other than the silly, old, antagonistic business idea of compassion and empathy. Don't ever think of those things. But for the business incentive, the law prescribes is that after 2 years, why would a MMFLA licensor pay the $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 annual fee to sell to patients when the recreational license will be available to anybody and who doesn't have to pay.
And nothing bars them from having those products.
Exactly. And the reason why they would pay for the next couple of years would be to maintain the business advantage of being able to obtain a recreational license ahead of.
The only difference right now I can see is the 1,000 milligram edibles versus 200 milligram edibles.
Okay. And I understand that, but I also think
Jamie would just eat 5.
Here's something.
Maybe there's some other shit.
Here's something that's interesting. You know, you know who's going to lose out? I thought about this. The under 21 patients.
Yep.
The under 21 patient loses big time, right? Because you can't go into
If only someone would have said that.
a recreational dispensary if it's not selling medical as a patient and get it right.
Yeah.
And you'd have to go to only a medical. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? They
It's
should
bullshit. But it's not the end of the world. I mean, it's something we fought for and then we lost ultimately. But the parents or the guardians, if they're under 18, are responsible for acquisition, dosing, all of that. So there's no logical reason that a parent could not purchase from a recreational
The 18
store.
to 21 ranges would be the weird range under those circumstances.
Exactly.
Or even younger, you know.
Well, the younger the parent or the guardian.
Oh, right. Because they have to have a. Well, they still is 18. They have to have a parent or guardian.
Right. No, under 18. Under 18. Once they're 18, all those rules go out the window.
Is that what the? Is that 21 for?
2 signatures, I think. 2 if you're under 18.
Right. But to be your own.
You can be your own caregiver at 18.
But I don't know if they'll be able to acquire. They go to a medical place.
Yes.
Yeah, you can get it.
But if there isn't any,
Yeah,
right,
but
so that's 18 to 21,
there's
okay.
an easy legislative fix, and that is that they allow
recreational if you got a card.
Right.
Sure.
And I'm sure that's probably what will end up happening. There's no logical reason MRTMA will, or not MRTMA, but that the MMFLA will stick around for any length of time past the initial 2-year period, just like you said.
Right, but that's a targeted area that would be left out of the mix. It's a good question to determine how many people fall into that category, if they are, for how long, how many people are getting into that frame where there's going to be a 3-year period of time where then a certain number of people are not going to have medical access. On the other hand, from a business standpoint, don't you think that whether they have a medical license or not, they could still furnish their shelves with products that may be appealing to medical marijuana patients?
So I'd like a consumer advocate group to be behind to make sure that happens, no matter if they have their medical license or not.
Because you could still
or that they have the resources to be able to do it.
Right.
If they
and
need
know what they're attempting to do and whatnot. But because we're talking about, will the recreational market contemplate those things? Is the end product, ultimately going to be something that is something other than just...
As you pointed out, those, of us who are knowledgeable of that will think about that, but there's many new people coming in here just with enough resources to get involved, but without much background in cannabis to understand those types of stuff.
And just like the bench press is being the most important workout exercise you could do, the amount of THC to get you high is all that will be thought about. Is that what we're talking about? The bench press. Don't work on your core. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean like bicep curls. Bicep curls. It's another THC exercise. You know what I mean? Right? You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
You get the metaphor. So
low medical value.
I feel like we should give a couple. The Danny Trevino story is so sad, and I could talk about it for a long time. One of the things that I was pulling up and showing Tony here is in the world of prosecutions, and especially in federal court, and this is happening with this what they're calling the what are they calling it? It's got a stupid name for it. It's called the Varsity Blues federal case. With the Felicity Huffman and Lori Laughlin charged with paying their kids to get into school or whatever is the allegations, and the one of them pled guilty, I think, and got a deal, and then the other one, Lori Laughlin and 10 other parents this week, when they said they're going to trial, they brought a bunch of new charges against them. Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you go to trial? So their liability now has gone up.
That's always how it works.
And that's how this game is played.
So
right?
Danny's correct, though. Like, some kind of change in the weather in law has to happen that results in taking people such as him out of the system.
But you understand, his case, he would have had, his guidelines would put him in a lesser amount if he pled guilty earlier on than where he would be now. Like, there's no question that
There's no
his penalty
question. Ryan
greater.
talks about that. He took the plea and everything to avoid the extra years because he
Right.
knew if he fought it, he'd go for many more years, and he just like ate it. And just now he's back out in the real world, functioning really well, as we all know. But he went through that, and I, was aware of it at that time.
And the exercising of his rights is what we're talking about as being so.
They considered him a kingpin also, or whatever, and that
Yeah.
really puts you in a disadvantage of, as you know, being able to like maneuver around under those circumstances.
It's interesting. He expressed a trial strategy success that is was done in light of not having any legal affirmative defense. Right? He was getting out this. It's interesting because like there's been thousands of times where defendants have been denied the right to present a defense by the you don't satisfy the court at your
Is
section
there
8.
anything that he can appeal?
Yeah, he's going to appeal.
Case?
He has a trial, so he has an automatic right to appeal. After his sentencing, he can go and they can. But
the Duvals,
Duvall's also.
They fought and
What
went
would you
to
think
trial.
his appeal would be on?
What's that?
Do you know what would you try to appeal on? Obviously.
It could be on the sentence because there may be factors that the court doesn't consider. Could be a reduced sentence, or it could be I don't know. There's the McIntosh issue. I don't know what was challenged beforehand. You know what I mean? But whatever was challenged, whatever issues are identifiable by going to trial, you have an automatic right to appeal, right? Instead of pleading guilty. And I think there's I don't know, but the point I was trying to make is his successes may not have been showing compliance via the Michigan. It may have been just nullifying the jury.
They want to fuck you more if you take it to trial.
I know, but I'm saying his wins. See, what I'm saying is the way he was in the situation as many others. I think of the guys up in Grand, whatever. Gaylord and Al Witt and those guys, like they went to trial. They didn't have an affirmative defense. Couldn't talk about medical marijuana. And their defense was only, it wasn't me or whatever, we kind of winking and nodding and trying to get the cops to say, oh yeah, they had cards and we needed cards and you know what happened, ladies and gentlemen. But the way you get around that is the defendant gets on the stand and they say, what happened? You heard what they testified about. Why did you do what you did? And they can then say, well, I believe that blah, 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 and blah, 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 and I'm a caregiver and a patient, and they can say whatever they want. You can't stop the defendant from testifying. Why did you do what you did? That's a legitimate question. Oh, your testimony is irrelevant. You can't testify. They can't say that. You're limited in what you can testify. That's outrageous, right? So that's what he's always done, it sounds like, in these other cases, and it's compelling. And even though at the end of the case, the judge will read an instruction, now you've heard testimony from the defendant that he was acting with the intentions of thinking he was in compliance. Mistake of law is not a defense. You cannot consider that. He said as a medical marijuana patient, you are not to consider the card and all that stuff about he does not have a affirmative defense. And they would find him not guilty in state court in the jurisdictions that he was at. He thought he did, he thought the same thing in federal court, and they read the same instruction. He said he noticed that there was a extra reading of, now remember, you have a duty to uphold your oath. When a judge says that, it kind of like scares you maybe. Who was the other trial that, Barb Agro. Remember Barb Agro? They brought out the juries individually and said, because there's people that are protesting and showing cards and stuff, they're like, you understand that if you don't follow the law, that you are violating the law. You understand, like scaring these jurors into like not voting with their hearts. But ironically, as one of the things I like to talk about in the trial court funding system, and my other favorite article.
Can I throw something in?
Hold on, wait. My other favorite article, which is the king of the courtroom. Let me show this. King of the court, which is constantly showing that, again, look at this bastard beating the crap out of that little defendant. That's like the prosecutors who overcharge and scare the crap out of defendants who are most vulnerable, have the least amount of resources to fight the case, get herded into pleas, which is why we have as this article discusses 95%, despite the fact that everyone in the system knows 95% of the people aren't guilty. And here in this Reason magazine reporting on the Varsity Blues scandal, and as they report, some of the defendants accepted plea deals in Boston. This is not a coincidence. USA Today's reporting makes abundantly clear that the parents who pled guilty did so because prosecutors had threatened them with these additional charges. Laughlin and the other parents face harsher criminal punishments now, entirely because they are insisting on their innocence. The new charges do not allow new actions. Prosecutors are looking to ramp up pressure against the remaining 23 parents, coaches, and other defendants who have not caved and are preparing for trial in the Varsity Blues case. You know, it's just whether you like the case, the charges or not, whether you think they're complete lunatics for doing what they did, that's not the point. The point is whether the system is being fair and affording due process to people and that people aren't being picked on. You know, the government has all the resources. They run the show. The prosecutor is so powerful. The kings in the courtroom. The kings in the courtroom. And, you know, this article reports on this is why 97% in federal court plead guilty. This is insane. Insane. They know 97% of the people are not, you know, guilty, but they're, you know, people are taking 9 years.
Conviction rates.
People are taking 9 years because they don't want to do 30. Or as Ryan said, he took 5 or ended up doing 3.5 or whatever it is. Instead of
took 4, then did all these incentives and stuff to try to reduce the time. And shit,
right.
yeah.
It's totally unfair. All right. So what did we learn today? Anything?
Well, can I just interject? Because we brought up Duval's earlier, and we brought up how fucked up the system is. I just want to remind people what happened there. Sheriff showed up, state sheriff or deputy, Glick, and looked at the grow at the house, the Duvals. They had greenhouses in the back, and said, "Well, if you move stuff around like this or that or whatever, you'll be in compliance by state law." And then he came back as part of a federal multi-jurisdictional task force and busted him for federally breaking the law.
He went to trial.
And then he tried to fight it, and then he got extra time because he tried exactly what you were saying.
I will say this, though. Of the crimes that he was convicted of versus the crimes he was acquitted of, if I recall correctly, they charged him with a ton of guns, which would have quadrupled in, you know, in...
They were like hunters and stuff. Like
No, but I know that, but I'm saying the gun charges he was acquitted of. You know, and it would have increased the penalties substantially. Instead, they were convicted of the marijuana charges, which still had mandatory minimums. What a terrible...
Yeah, but the way that law enforcement officer fucked him over.
I know.
Yeah. And that was brought... I went to Cincinnati or wherever the federal appeals court is for the appeals court in that case.
Yeah, what happened?
They didn't win, but they said really clearly what happened, and it was just atrocious, you know. They were concerned about, did he have his franks or whatever. Like, yeah, he went through that, but they, you know, that didn't solve the problem.
Right.
Like, well, he should have taken care of it then. Since it didn't, we're not doing anything. That was McQuaid, too, was the one who, like, we know was better from the Eastern District and better than the Western District, but still wasn't perfect. She was the prosecutor in this case.
Yeah, didn't she go against Dana? Not her. Who did
she supported Miles Jr. over Dana.
You're
right.
absolutely correct. And she was a big contributor to MSNBC legal analysis on the Trump thing, and I don't see her anymore. I think she got a
Somebody
college
told
gig at U of M.
Somebody told him about Glick. Yeah, she does work at U of M.
All right, so who's got some final thoughts? Deb, you've been quiet. Are you okay over there?
I'm fine. I was trying to listen to Danny and just absorb everything
It's tough,
he was
isn't
saying.
it?
It's really a lot to take in. I can't imagine he's so calm, but he's just... What are you going to do?
You know, and who disagrees with him?
Yeah.
Because a small number of people that have the authority to do this and are doing it. He's like the guards. You know, you hear that the guards don't even think, you know, can't believe what's going on here.
The guards are not.
I know, but that's not the normal thing you say. You know, he's obviously, you know.
Yeah, it's bad.
Terrible. There's still a lot of social injustice that remains from the Warren families, the Warren marijuana. I mean, in a lot of these communities, they're going to be pulling people over and dragging them to court and fear-mongering about driving. You know, his situation just seems like a beatdown, just a total,
It's
you
a
know,
sad story right at the
like a favor
holidays,
was
for
cashed
sure.
in from some drug cop and, you know what I mean? Something like that. They called it in, hey, you know, I'm going to retire. Can you take care of this one guy for me and just put him out, you know. He beat me 4 times in court or something like that. Sounds right.
One last favor on my way out.
Right. I don't know. All right. Jamie, what's the final thought here? Is that a pizza or what is that? Okay. Where are you going to be this week?
Primo's Pizza is good.
So your fans can come follow you and see you at all your appearances.
Yeah, Jamie, where are you going to be this week? Because we can't ever keep track of
In January, there's like 3 or 4, and I don't remember all the exact dates, but
That's
I
not
will
this week.
be happy
This
to.
is December.
Bring your calendar next show so we know.
I think the holidays are kicking in. I don't have as many obligations right now.
There's no show next week. Is that what we've decided?
I think that's because that's Christmas Day.
Tuesday would be asking too much. That's the 24th.
The following week is also New Year's Day,
That's
so
right.
we have to decide. We
We
probably
could go
won't see
back
each
to
other.
Thursday, but that doesn't do us any good.
It's still in January.
Maybe have like a Monday night show in the middle of that or something like that, or right? I don't
We
know.
can't do a Tuesday night show.
Can't do Tuesday. It has to be like a Monday or a Friday. Are you,
Or
are you guys
Thursday.
doing the Cabbage Patch Cafe?
Cabbage Patch Cafe.
We're off till.
Our last show for the year was yesterday, and it was
Yeah, we had our
Ray was
holiday
on
show,
there.
yeah. It was a heart-wrenching.
It was a
show,
heart-wrenching
yeah.
one because he talked about a lot
was
of
a
the stuff
tough
that he's
one.
going through right now. And then we had some Dory Edwards was on, and Julie Barry.
Chandra.
By the way, did you guys follow through on the request?
Well, Jamie bought out the entire inventory.
Okay, so I'll hook
So,
up with you after the show.
Amanda, I told you that when I posted a picture of you with the, what's it called, Sundari lube.
Oh, I forgot to do that, but I'm going back up Thursday, and if you want some, I will actually absolutely grab you some. No problem.
Let's some
Do
inside
you want to
jokes.
describe what it does, Jamie?
It's a lube. It's a sex lube.
I would like to stop.
But it has other uses too.
It has
as we've
other
learned.
uses.
The hair gel. Hair gel. Fixes your shoe with the rubber.
Well, if you want to sell it, you should get in touch with Dory then and carry the products. Yeah, she wants to carry the products.
Next show, we're going to be discussing lubes and sex products.
Yes.
That's the topic.
And hempcock, and hempcock also.
Get some hair balms
Right.
in there.
What was that? What was that hair stuff that you had?
The kimono.
Well, I'm pretty good with left
What
and
was
right,
that
but I
called?
still
That
have
was
a problem with
hempcock,
top and
right?
bottom.
Yeah.
Hempcock.
It's been a problem my entire life.
It was referring to roosters. We don't have dirty minds here. The rooster.
Well, of course.
Right.
It's sent in my kindergarten report card.
I've got
This is the show I know. This is the show I love.
At Grow Green on January 11th, between 11 and 3, we have a demo day where we have Grow Line, a manufacturer showing you how to balance pH and configure, calibrate your meter. We also have a clone swap, so if you have a clone and want to trade genetics, bring a clone and you can swap with somebody else. And we will have Fresh Coast Seeds on site at Grow Green in Whitmore Lake on January 11th. If you need any seeds, you can purchase them from them.
All right, excellent. Anyone else want to?
Thanks again for having me on the show,
My
Michael.
pleasure.
Appreciate you.
My
brother.
pleasure. Appreciate all you do, Tony.
Happy holidays.
Yes. So we'll see
Ho,
you
ho,
after the
ho.
first of the year. Is that right? Unless we convene
Happy
otherwise?
holidays, Happy New Year.
That's right. Okay.
Feliz Navidad.
Burn and fatty. Don't drink and drive.
Jamie, you want to take us out with a little? I had a little dreidel. Get your ukulele.
No, but
I had a little
dreidel, I made you out of clay.
And when you're dry and ready, dreidel I shall play.
Yeah,
Oh,
dreidel. All right.
There you go.
Instead of caroling, that's what we do.
Well, that certainly rocked.
All right. Gimmel.
Bad he's clueless. He doesn't know.
All right, so that's it. We're calling it, right?
We're shutting it down.
Tommy and the, is that right? We got cutting it? Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next year.
Ho, ho, ho.
the Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
We're here live at the exclusive provisioning center in Ann Arbor for the first day of recreational marijuana sales. We're waiting for the 10 o'clock open. We've got about an hour, but there's plenty of great folks here with us in line. And like I told my buddy Bob, hell, I've been waiting for 44 years for this. Another hour's not going to kill me, especially to be in the company of such excellent people who've been waiting just as long as I have. As I had pointed out earlier, this is a fantastic event, a culmination of decades of hard work, jail time, suffering, sacrifice, and a lot of positivity. So shout out to the medical marijuana community here in the state of Michigan for making this happen. Let's see here, guys. It's your boy, Uncle Jesse. There's the front end of the line before the turn into the store, exclusive provisioning center here in Ann Arbor, man. Again, I keep pointing it out because it's a celebration. This culmination of decades of hard work from some of the OGs, from a lot of advocates and activists. A lot of people have gone to jail. A lot of people have been arrested and treated like shit, had their lives devastated for simple possession. And here we are. Look at this. Look at this, baby. Look at this line. All the way down. All for the sale of adult use cannabis here in the state of Michigan. But I definitely wanted to make sure that I was up here today to document this historic occasion. As I said, man, lots of hard work, lots of trials, tribulations, sacrifices were made in order to have this day. I know I'm with the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association, and we were going to get up here, and then we were debating because of the weather, and then I was like, FTS, baby! We did it, right? So thank every one of you for coming out today. Thanks for making marijuana legal. Let's get it, guys. Make some noise. Come on. So right on, man. Right on. It's happening. It is happening here. Exclusive provisioning in Ann Arbor. Legal adult use sales. Coming to a place near you soon, right? And shout out to all the OGs who worked hard, like Adam Brooks and Michael Komorn and Rick Thompson and all these guys that have been busting their ass trying to make this happen for decades. You know, shout out and tip of the hat to them guys. We don't know that it's overpriced yet, but we do support local farmers. As a matter of fact, to the degree that we hope that most of the provisioning centers are utilizing the emergency rules, allowing us to buy right from the caregivers and the local farmers through the processors and the growers, man. So, you know, yes, we absolutely do support local farmers. I, for one, believe that is the heartbeat and the blood life of all marijuana in Michigan. And until our market is fully saturated and stocked, we're going to need these caregivers. So don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. So again, guys, we're here. Exclusive provisioning center in Ann Arbor, here for the opening day of recreational sales. Look, we're here. Yeah. Yep, we are here. Reporting for the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association on this historic day. Woo!
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture has returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, It has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry. So come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.